Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this Women Being Talks number 9. Today we have with us Anxhela Filaj, who is a first-year PhD student at the University of Debrecen in Hungary, and she's attending the Doctoral School of Literary and Cultural Studies, working on film studies, film adaptations of rape, body studies, and graphic representations of sexual violence. Pragya Singh will be joining Anxhela in this conversation, and she's a research scholar at the University of Hyderabad in India. Her research area and experience includes representation and translation of female sexuality in Maithili literature, specializing in comparative literature. She has worked with NGOs, which spread awareness about gender sensitivity, and organized anti-drug campaigns. Pragya has presented various papers about representation of female sexuality in Indian popular fiction, The Wives of Male Migrants, Religion and Gender, and Maithili language in public sphere. And her ongoing research project includes translation of female sexuality in Maithili literature and its various aspects. So today's topic is online harassment, especially during this time of COVID-19. Anxhela and Pragya, how do you see, what are your views in this topic? Who would like to start?
Okay, I can go first.
Okay.
Thank you, Monica, for this opportunity. It's always a pleasure joining your project. So I really hope that this meeting is going to be beneficial for everyone attending it, because Pragya and me are going to introduce the topic of online harassment in two different perspectives. So I am doing my studies in Hungary, but I am from Albania, which is a small country belonging to the Balkan region, and I am mainly going to focus on that region, and more specifically my country, along with some new events which have happened recently, and I would be very glad to share them with you. I think that they would quite fit with the topic today.
It's great. And what about you, Pragya? Yes.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk about a recent incident which took place in our country. So I'm from India, and sorry, I should have said that first. So I'm from India, and a recent incident which took place in our country that shook the entire country and media. It was called Boys Locker Room. So my focus would be on decoding, the whole incident, So I would largely talk about it, but yeah, it is also a form of online harassment which had happened. So the entire incident happened through a boys chat group on Instagram, which the content of the chat was exposed out and open in media, and everybody was shocked that how could this happen, but that was not something at all surprising. So I would just decode that whole incident and talk about how social media harassment is affecting our lives.
Yes, absolutely. So which one would like to start speaking about the topic? Just go ahead as you wish.
Okay, so would you like to go first, or should I go?
Yes, you can start.
Okay. So as I said, as you Monica mentioned, I am working on film studies. And the media representation of rape on screen and sexual violence. But recently, what caught my attention even though I was far from home and I couldn't join what was going on in my country, was the story of a 15-year-old girl who was raped for a whole year by a 65-year-old man who was at the same time the school guard. So the person that was in charge of protecting all the kids in the school, and this event was quite heartbreaking, and it uh, emotionally affected us as a society because the old man, he was blackmailing the little girl for a whole year, ever since she was 14, with her personal images and videos of his abuse. And he was threatening of sharing all this information with everyone. What is important pointing out here is that the Albanian society is a very conservative one. So we have very special way of, ever since the beginning, I remember even from my childhood, a very special way of treating girls and boys. Of course that I would say that I would blame this on the past, because Albania and the Balkan region and most of the Eastern European countries have been under the communist regime for 5 decades. So in my country, communism ended at the end of the 20th century. So in 1989 was the year in which this regime ended, and democracy at last started. But it wasn't that easy. Because even though we have been for 3 years in democracy, so 3 decades in democracy, I quite support what another scholar of Balkan studies, Dina Jordanova, she stated that she considers the Balkan region as I'm going to cite her, as the periphery of the global capitalization. This based mainly on the way how the society is constructed, on the way how women are treated in the Balkan region, and on the way how the role between men as the family provider and supplier, and the women as the child bearer, so how these roles are separated. So I would say in the Balkan region, and more specifically in my country, we are way far from the global standards of democratic society. What was very important about the story of this 15-year-old girl was that for the first time, ever since, so in these 3 decades of democracy, women all stand up to defend her. So the 1st of June is Children's Day, and on that day, the whole country was mourning. No one was celebrating. Instead, what followed were a wide range of protests in order to support that girl. But this rape case was not the only case that has happened, and it is a pity to confirm that the media has not supported the right representation of sexual violence toward women on screen. So although a lot of bad things have happened to women, to children, most of the times things have just escaped the public recognition, and this is how most of the events have gone through. But this time it was different, and I'm really proud for what happened to my country, because I would say that it's the first feminist protest It might sound a bit backward for the time that we are living, but it's really the first feminist protest going on in my country, the first serious one. Yeah, this is what I would like to share for now.
Thank you so much for that, Ella. Pragya, would you like to go ahead now, please?
Yeah, sure.
Perfect.
So, all right, yeah. So, my topic is boys' locker room, decoding masculinity at its root. So, in the world of social media, with the deluge of various kinds of apps, there is need to recognize that online violence is one of the many forms of violence meted out to women. The violence which was limited earlier to the physical access is now extended to the virtual medium, and it is equally or more painful and fearsome. I would like to discuss and comprehend a horrifying incident which took place about a month ago, called the boys' locker room. It was a private Instagram chat group. The group, full of male students from various schools of prominent schools of Delhi, and the screenshots from the chat went viral, and they were found talking about with their classmates, underage classmates, about the way they looked, the way their dressing sense in a very derogatory manner, and they talked about raping them, saying things like "we will gang rape them," etc. And some photos of girls were morphed for the entertainment, and they were also threatened that if you talk about it, then you will be raped, and we will circulate your nude pictures in the media. So some of the boys who were recognized, they got arrested for bullying under Section 66 of the IT Act. But this horrifying incident is one of the many examples which occurs every day in the country and across the world. This is not something which we are unfamiliar with. So another such incident which took place recently was which I was actually surprised my nerve was wrecked when I heard that, and I was really surprised to hear that during the Zoom classroom study, some professors from University of Delhi were abused, and sexual remarks were passed on them. So, do these occurrences surprise me? It definitely does not, because this is something which we are very much familiar with and which we have seen happening in everyday life, And but yeah, I do certainly stand mortified because, every time you may be hearing it for 100th time, but you will still be as mortified as the first incident. And perhaps we have heard, enough stories like this from childhood, and also because our response individually and as society and as legal system has been that of boys will be boys. That's why maybe perhaps we are not that surprised. Every time something happens, we say boys will be boys. But from where does that come? It comes from the society as a whole, the legal system, the socio-economic system, everything, sort of trains us towards that. And this is the kind of system which has made us so tolerant towards the toxic, masculine behavior which we face every day. So to understand this cycle of inflicting sexual and other kinds of harassment on women, and acceptance of such behavior needs to be, scratched on the surface. It requires us to go beneath and decode it. So that's what I'm going to talk in detail. So it would not be wrong and nothing new to say that the social conditioning in which our society has sanctioned, it sanctions the patriarchal norms of subjection and subjugation, and this gets replicated in people's behavior, men or women both, because we also know that women play soldiers in the hands of patriarchy. It's not just women, it is men, it is also women, who propagate patriarchy and such, subjugation. And because of, and these are the things, such subjugation also gets translated into law and the public policies which the government makes. The incident which I have discussed, it is just a macrocosm of the whole thing, the entire society. The participants of this conditioning, they are trained since childhood, and growing up as a male also involves internalizing a sense of power. So when you are born as a man, I cannot say it for the entire society or world at large, but what I have seen in India is that here also, not all societies, because we also have matriarchal society in northeast of India, but the North India, some parts of southern India, central India, but yeah, most of the states in India. So there, when a male child is born, the celebration is of a different level. Now all of this is reducing, but yeah, till I was born, this is what has been happening. When a male child is born, this celebration is of a different level. Still in many states, Haryana, Rajasthan, and many other states, there is female feticide, the killing of female feticide. So all of that, so society at large propagates this kind of thought that, a male child is even an animal is superior than, a woman. A male child has a lot of power. So when a male child is born, he internalizes a sense of power and he grows up with that, and that breeds, becomes giant, and that gendered power, it also appears in the public sphere, and that's why the kind of violences which we come across, which you discussed, Villa, and what I am discussing.
Mm-hmm. I would say that I don't know. Are you done, Pragya?
Okay.
Are you done with your? Do you want to add something?
I have more to say. Like, do we have time?
Yeah, sure. There is time. Can I just comment on what you said?
Yeah, sure.
Unfortunately, I have to agree with most of the things that you said. That what for patriarchal societies such as ours, what is worse is not the fact that the sexual abuse or assault or sexual harassment happens. It was what comes after that, how the society treats the victim. So in most of the cases, there is this self-blame that all the victims have to face after being harassed, after being abused, and living in confined societies such as, let's say, in our case, India and Albania. That humiliation that comes from the sexual abuse would confine these victims even more, and they would just live with the assault. They would never speak out. They would never go to the police and talk about the aggressor, the rapist, and these for a lot of reasons. Not only for the fear of judgment, which might come from even the closest circle, the closest people around them, but at the same time from the lack of trust in the legal institutions. So I don't know how it is. You can tell me more about India,
No, I
but in my
completely
country,
agree with you. That's why I said that, the subjugation gets translated into the law. It gets transmitted
yeah,
and translated into the law, the legal system, the economic system.
yeah.
Everything gets framed around that.
Mm-hmm.
I completely agree with you. And the fact
Like,
that women fail to reach out and talk about it, uh, you know, uh, it is a result of such kind of subjugation. Because if people get to know that somebody is raped, like for in India, I guess 99% of the cases, if a woman is raped and wants to get married, it's very hard. No one
yeah.
will marry a woman who is raped. You know,
Mm-hmm.
so I completely agree with you on that. Yeah.
What about the how are the laws in India? For instance, in my country, if there is a person raping another one, that person would be sentenced with 4 years jail time. And this is another reason why the protests that I going on in Albania that I mentioned earlier was even more beneficial, and it gave heart to even more women to join it, because it happened that a 4-year-old girl was raped by a man. He was sentenced with only 4 years, and when he got out of jail after 4 years, he raped another 8-year-old girl. So 4 years jail time is not enough. The Also, they were asking for a public list of these offenders, so a public list online, so that each parent could go and check if there is any rapist living in near the area, near their area, or something like that. So how is it in India? How many? Um,
In India,
yeah,
the laws are very strict. So if you rape someone, you will be hanged.
you
So
have the death. Yeah. Mhm.
the laws are very strict, but the issue is, the implementation of the law. That's how I see it, because the cases which come uh, are much lesser than the incidents which takes place in the country every day.
Mhm.
So that's the problem. I think in our country is implementation, and also the social stigma. Because of the social stigma, women do not come out and complain, or register a complaint about it. Because
Definitely.
the law and all these things are post-colonial things, and these are very recent things. But the social stigma has stayed for thousands of years. So
Yeah.
to come out of that and talk about it is very difficult. Even
Yeah.
I have to, if I get raped, I would be very frank, I would have to think, I'll go file a complaint, but I know the consequences of it. I'll have to be daring, and I'll have to accept my life that way. you know
Mhm.
so there may not be you know there may not be my suffering may not be as much as somebody from village, or somebody who is not from that economic background, but I will also suffer. So even somebody, I would say, even so, if somebody is a star in this country, that person would also suffer.
Um, um, what is to be mentioned here is that even though my country and your country are so far geographic, I mean, talking about geography, and we are located in totally opposite spheres of the world, it is a pity that we have to share. We have this, what we share,
Yeah.
the patriarchy, and the death rate, the rape rate, and the reaction of the society toward victims, toward rape survivors. What I would say is that for me, it is actually quite easy to see why there is a link, because the way how I see is that a rapist is not born a rapist, and this can fit in all the possible societies. because rapists, as human beings, are constructed, they are raised by socio-cultural attitudes which
Right.
shape their identity and motivate even more their violence. So the
Right.
chances are, yeah, as you mentioned, for men to become more sexually aggressive if they are born and raised in a patriarchal society. And of course, nowadays, the freedom that everyone has on social media, on all the other social platforms, facilitate this humiliation toward their victims even more. Because for a patriarchal society such as mine, the honor of a girl is the most important thing. So,
I think that's the same in our country,
yeah,
though, like, yeah,
so,
the laws are
yeah.
very different. Yeah, laws are very strict here, but the honor code remains the same. And
Mhm.
there are also lots of rehabilitation center, and a lot of, a lot of help is around. But the social stigma, I would not deny that the social stigma stays. No matter how strong the legal system is, no matter how many are trying to help, the stigma stays. It remains the same.
Mhm. But what do you think, in your point of view, why there is, how do you see is there an increase in the recent years now with the evolution of media and all these wide opportunities that the youth has nowadays in different social platforms? Do you think that this has affected the an increase in the rape cases in India, let's say? Do you think that they use these social platforms wisely in order to blackmail girls? Because this has happened in a lot of cases in my country, and this is one of the main reasons. So the fear of public shaming is the main reason why a lot of girls in Albania decide to shut up, to shut down, never to share anything. And what does this mean? This means that that person that committed the rape would be raping even more girls, and so he becomes more powerful. He feels unstoppable, and on the so we have both sides. So do you think that this media and the access that they have, based even on the boys' locker room that you mentioned at the beginning, has affected the increase in rape cases in your country?
Um, I would not say that the social media has affected the increase in rate of the rape, but I would say that, on the contrary, what my understanding says is that it has existed always. So there are
Mm-hmm.
two things happening here. One is that it has always existed because of the social media and the access of the media. Not just social media and the media as well. It is being reported more. One
Mm-hmm.
thing is that, and the other thing is that, other thing is that women are also coming out and talking about it. For example, the Me Too movement. So this has also given a platform to express, to talk about it. So that's what I think about the social media. And yeah, I agree with you that this kind of we would not have been sitting and discussing here if social media had not caused violence. This is a different kind of violence which has come up, and we need to deal with it right now. But the rape case and all those things, I think it has always existed. It is just not because of the social media.
Mm-hmm. For my country, being 50 years under the communist regime, it was uh, unthinkable that um, um, someone would rape another person. This due to the fact that the society was very oppressed. They didn't have the freedom of speech, so no one, everyone was under a strict control. No one had the freedom of doing what they wanted to do. So, and of course, that the laws were more strict. So yeah, there are a lot of the old generation in my country, let's say my grandparents, they would blame the increase of criminality on democracy. So for them, my grandparents, they would praise communism. They would say that yes, this happened because you have all this freedom now, and everyone can get easily out of control, and the order is lost. So, what do you think? What can you say about your country? Do you think that there is that fear from and the social obligation that people have enough to stop them, to make them aware that they are crossing their rights, that they are violating another person, or how do you think the government is supporting all these raped women, and how are they dealing with these rape cases in India?
No, so I think one thing is that this is very much debatable whether democracy is good for a society or not. It's very, very debatable. And the other thing is that, yeah, in India, definitely no. The government is never ever going to support a rapist. You know, we have very strict laws against that. Okay, the like I'll repeat again. The only issue in our country is that, you know, the implementation. You know, so there is a whole lot of process which is involved for to provide justice to someone. First we need to report the case. Okay, so that first step itself is very difficult, you know, that going there and reporting it, you know, coming out and reporting it, that's an act of courage. And that is, a woman is withheld because of the social stigma. Okay, I don't think democracy has any role to play in this. In fact, democracy, in my opinion, is something which strengthens the society. You know, it is to be, if I mean, there is a proverb in India that the more tight you strengthen, the more tight you lock a rope, it will break. You know, so it has to be a little loose. The rope has to be a little loose in order to, some flexibility is needed for a society to survive, in my view. You may disagree with me, but yeah, that's what I think about it.
Yeah, I agree with what you said, actually. And what I have to say is that I have been abroad for almost 5 years now, and of course that I moving out of going away from the social stigma where I was living has definitely affected my life and the way how I think of living my life, and my perspective on life in general, because it is quite difficult for a girl, for a lady, to live in a socially constrained society which would dictate your behavior. And what is difficult for all these rape cases going on is not only the fact that the victims, or I'd like to call them the rape survivors. I don't like identifying them with the name victim, because for me they are all survivors.
Yeah, because the victimization happens from the society. The person itself is not.
So that is a second victimization toward them. So it is not only this fear of social blaming toward them, but it's the fear of trustability. So, and this is something going on not only in our society, but in the world in general. So if someone would report of being raped at the police, the first thing that would be questioned is the trustability. Where is the proof? And this might quite happen if the victim or the rape survivor would have inconsistent memories related to the attack, right? So, and there are a lot of TV shows demonstrating this. And I think that this is a step which scares these victims, these rape survivors, even more from reporting their assaults.
Right, right. Yeah, the other thing which you talked about, the TV shows and all the representation which happens in movies or TV shows, that also discourages. Because for example, like there is a show in our country called Crime Patrol. So they although it makes people aware of the crimes happening around, but I remember having seen a lot of episodes where how somebody who has gone against the patriarchal norms of the family, or somebody who has reported if they have been raped, how they have suffered, they all show such things. So yeah, that sometimes it educates, but at the same time sometimes it just backfires. So yeah.
Yeah, but I think in the area, at the age where we are living, we are in the 21st century, and from 2017, as you mentioned earlier, the power of the Me Too movement has become even stronger. So we can, in some way, we can say that the Me Too movement is in itself a it's turning into a even more powerful social platform, and it's affecting everyone's opinion. So we cannot say that there is the same perspective of looking at women on screen. As Laura Mulvey, she mentioned in Visual Pleasure and Narrative Cinema, that women are always connoted with that to be lookatedness. So as the object
Something
of
which,
desire,
yeah, something which Judith Butler talks about. Sorry.
Yes, but
yeah, the male gaze.
Now we have all these feminist protests and movements such as Me Too, which are introducing a new wave of approaching these cases, of dealing with the victims, and the influence of Me Too is quite strong on the new films or so in the movie industry in general. I don't know if you are aware of the Netflix show Unbelievable.
I'm aware with the
yes. So there are so many other shows, films, movies which promote the a certain kind of attitude to those rape survivors, that they can make it, that everything can go good in the end, everything. And so it's very important that the media is working side by side with this feminist movement and is supporting the representation of women on screen. So we are no longer interested on seeing who was the rapist, what was he living life like, or what was the rapist background, because a lot of movies before 2017 are mainly concentrated on that part. So they foreshadow the rapist, and they leave in the shadow the victim, the one that was sexually assaulted. That's why I think it's very positive. It's a very positive energy what is going through now, and we are very lucky to be living this kind of promoting the self-esteem of all those rape survivors, and showing them that of course that they can make it. So in this regard, I think media is a very positive contributor in elevating another image of being a survivor, being stronger, doing everything, having your life in control.
Right. So yeah, in that, what we are doing in that way is that, we are directly, it's sort of an interaction with the society, So those who are watching it, those who are the viewers, it's kind of it's communicating to them that, look, change your attitude towards it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So and from where does these kind of attitudes come? This comes from the society. Like we find like the locker room incident. We cannot wash away our hands by just blaming those kids. those 15, 16 years old kids. It's because it is representative of the society itself, society at large, and we cannot blame them and just wash away our hands, because we are a participant in that. We are a participant in that, because we have led them to do that. For example, because kids are like sponge. They'll learn whatever you teach them and whatever they observe around. So the educators who teach them, the parents, the influencers who are there, in their lives, they have to teach them the right thing. They play a very vital role. Such incidents can only be curbed by doing that. So education plays a very important role, not just literating kids, but educating them in a real sense. So every school should have a curriculum where they are taught these things, where they are taught how to behave, what kind of behavior is sanctioned and what is not, because they clearly have no idea. Like, we all have seen that. I have had many such personal experiences. So I would just talk about one of my experience. 3-4 years back, somebody on Facebook sent me photos of his genitals, and I was just sitting and talking just like that. And he was from an NGO, and I was shocked that somebody who runs an NGO, for underprivileged can do such things, and I was really shocked. And that time I was friends with another male, and I asked him that I really want to report this. I was like really angry. I was very pissed off, and I said that I want to report it. And that person stopped me. That person said, no, just let it go. It will cause a lot of trouble. You're in the 3rd year of your graduation. You need to focus on your studies, this and that. And I just, that's what I listened at that time. I thought, okay, just let it go. Such asshole, just let it go. I don't care. This is nowhere going to, affect my confidence or the way I look at myself or anything. So I thought, okay, just let it go. But that was not right. Now, when I look back, I am so angry with that person that why did you stop me? Why did you stop me from reporting it? If that person has done that to me, he'll do it to other person as well. So that's one experience which I just wanted to share. And that's what I have to say, that all the people around us, they have a very important role to play, how we get shaped. And that's what, like in the boys locker room incident, we as society cannot blame them solely, entirely, and wash away our hands. We are equally responsible.
Definitely. I'd like to add the last point here in what you said, that of course that I agree that we are all responsible for what happens, because we all contribute to what is going on around us. Even by doing that, what you said, we just make a blind eye. We neglect so many small incidents and happening every day around us. And I'm sure that every girl, even boys, they get harassed so many times, and they never have the confidence to report, to talk about, to share that with someone. So what happens? What happens is that these people, even when they are teenagers, like in the boys' locker room case, they grow, they keep doing that, and no one does anything, and then they turn into something more dangerous, which might in a couple of years risk everyone. And what is the main problem with the child criminality is that children today, especially in my country, I think in the Balkan region as a whole, in the Balkan Peninsula, children find role models in the wrong places. So
I agree.
This of course affects a lot their psychological development, their emotional attachment to everyone around them, and of course the way how they turn out. Another thing that I'd like to mention is the lack of sexual education in Albania. This is,
Absolutely.
is it, yeah, if it is the same even in your country, then I think it's a common thing that patriarchal societies all share. So it is shameful for a teacher to teach her students about sexual education. I remember in elementary school, it was always that part at the end of the book, and we would always skip it. The teacher would always skip that class, so we would never explain the genitalia, the how are babies born, how are babies made, and
Right.
so this
Right.
was shameful. No,
Yeah.
you are a
Yeah.
child, you shouldn't know about that, because
Yeah.
yeah, this is the only thing what makes you a child. The ignorance that you have toward these toward sex, toward sexuality, and this kind of issues. And I think that it would be very important to have to reshape the whole educational institution. So I
Right.
think this is a pressing issue that needs to be addressed immediately in patriarchal society. So people need to move out of the shells where they are living. They need to confront the truth. And of course, education is very important for everyone, and it should be exploring sexuality or educating children about their sexuality. I think it's one of the most important things, especially with the everything that is going on around at the moment. And I think it would be one way of preventing, making them aware, showing them.
Yeah. Yeah, and yeah, in our country, the situation is pretty much the same. When I was in school, I was it was sort of a gossip thing to talk about genitals. When we were, I think we were introduced to the reproduction chapter in class seventh, and it was a gossip thing. And people would not, even the teachers would not talk openly about it. And parents definitely do not, they never talk about it, and we
Exactly.
learn it from the outside world. We grow up, and then we learn, and till then we keep suffering. And there is uh, neither parents nor teachers talk about sex education, you know uh, and the suppressed desires, to even know about it. That leads to a lot of I think that also has a role to play in sexual crime.
Definitely. I think, yeah, this ignorance, I would like to name it, to call it ignorance,
Ignorance.
that
Yeah.
children have toward the sexual education might lead them, as I said, toward wrong role models. So the access that children have nowadays to pornography might so it surely does affect uh, the way how they grow up, the way how they psychologically evolve, and the certain ideas that they create in their mind regarding the relationship between a man and a woman, so how it should be. So because of all these I would blame it even to this, to the all the pornographic sites and the lack of supervision by their parents. I think it definitely affects uh, the way how boys, but even girls, think nowadays. Um, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I think a lot of the scenario can be changed if that is provided, sex education,
Yeah.
and, what is sanctioned and what is not, sexual behavior and all those things. And that has to come from every corner, not just in school, but at home, among the friends, then, then everything will be normalized. Now it's something, which is sacrosanct. Sex is sacrosanct, you cannot talk about it. And but if it's normalized, it has
Yeah.
to get normalized.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then
Yeah.
it can be of some help to the
Yeah.
society.
This is a pity to end my talk, Monica, because I don't know how much, maybe we ran out of time. It is a pity that we are living in a society which is normalizing sexual violence and sexual aggression toward girls, toward children, toward women, toward ladies, but we are not normalizing the education of sexual education, which is very important.
Yeah, absolutely. There's lots of interesting feedback here in the chat, so I'll go through it, and some people asked some questions. So I'll let you know. So the first one, Anupama Vora is asking Ella if you can apprise us about the rape laws in your countries and what is the attitude of the people towards rape victims. I don't know if this is something you...
Yeah. So as I mentioned, a person is convicted with 4 years jail time if there is enough proof that he or she, because even women can rape someone. 4 years jail time. If the victim, if the aggressor causes the death of the victim, of course that the jail time goes higher, so the punishment is higher. But till now, it's just 4 years jail time, which is nothing, and that's why the protest is going on in my country, yeah, and the protesters are requesting an increase of the detention of rapists in Albania, because it is not enough 4 years.
Thank you so much. So then we have a comment here that it's related to what you both mentioned. It was Devendra Bishnoi who said, I think the school curricula do not have enough exposure to children from the beginning. So social norms about gender are perpetuated even if students are exposed to new ideas in higher education. Being a man, I find it difficult to realize when I cross lines, even in normal conversation, in using gendered terms or ideas. So an effective solution is to bring in changes in school curricula to shape children's thoughts from the beginning. Totally, absolutely agree with it.
Absolutely.
Totally, very effective.
Yes, absolutely. And Professor Jasbir Singh asked to Pragya, the first incident you mentioned, was it related to economic upper section who could be brought up in proper social system? Pragya go through the changes in law made in India and the empowerment given to women. Women are coming out, and many NGOs and social organizations are also helping such women to come out. Is there anything you would like to add here?
Yeah, definitely. Women are coming out, but there is a disparity between the number of cases happening and the women coming out. And as the laws are very strict in India. No, there is no denial about it. And but still, the disparity is huge. One cannot deny that. And I guess that disparity has to end. Then only we can say that, the cases are entirely being reported. It's not entirely being reported.
May I ask you something?
There was the part of the question I missed.
Yeah, like what social background did the boys that committed the crime? Because I heard they were coming from rich families.
They are coming from very rich families.
So how does that affect the their
one thing is that
convention or
so in general, what we hear, though I would not like to generalize, but in many incidents, we hear that, if somebody is poor, if somebody, say laborers and workers, one just passes this kind of comments, oh, don't go talk to them, they might be violent, they may just rape you or something, When incidents like this come up, that raptures those kind of myth, that anybody can be a rapist. One does not necessarily have to be coming from a lower strata or a upper strata. And those boys definitely are from or were from a very privileged background because they were studying in big schools of Delhi, you know.
Yeah, but I think this caught maybe the attention of the media even more. The fact that they were not
Good.
regular.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And but yeah, one should. I mean, I would applaud the fact that, you know, some people from the same group came out and talked about it. You know, the boys who came out and talked about it, you know, were also from the same background and same school. So yeah.
Perfect. So another comment here by Devendra says that law cannot be effective until and unless children are taught to imbibe values of gender equality in daily to day.
Right.
Absolutely, because law enforcement can be effective to deter cases of rape or sexual harassment, of serious crime that can be proved judicially, but to curb day-to-day harassment effectively, law can only be one of the solutions. Yes. And Professor Jasbir asks to Pragya again that regarding female feticide is also encouraged by women in the family. Any thoughts about it? How can this be justified?
Of course, this can never be justified at all. And you know, even killing a child even before it's born, it's I mean, that would be the heinous crime possible. So it can never be justified. But I would not entirely blame women for this. You know, from where does that mentality come? Like I was talking about women playing hands playing soldiers in the hands of patriarchy. From where does that happen? How does that happen? You know, so how they have been treated, they want to treat other women in a similar way. You know, so if their child was killed in their womb, she would also want the other women's, may or may not, but this behavior comes from there. You know, so killing a female feticide, I would not say that we can entirely blame it on women. I mean, you know, male also have equal roles to play, more so because the economic you know, economic system is majorly taken care by men, and it is the hold is more their hold is more on the whole economic system. And marriage in India is very much connected to the economy, and why female feticide happens is connected to the money and economy. Okay, so I would definitely not blame entirely women for this. Male have equal or major roles to play.
Absolutely. Then Parveen Kumari made another comment that said girls and women also need to be aware of what constitutes online abuse and harassment, as there are many incidents in which they post and send pictures to boyfriends and friends on online talks and forced by the other party. So here I think we get again to what we were speaking about, education and sexual education, that is so important. Then Anupama Vora mentioned that after Nirbhaya rape case, a change has come in India. Family peer support rape cases, victims. More cases are being reported and victims are supported, so a change is coming.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Nirbhaya case was one such incident which was again, I mean, the largest protest so far has been witnessed because of that case alone. And it caught attention of the world media as well. You know, but the thing is that, yeah, more cases are being reported after that. But what took this much, you know, the Nirbhaya case to happen, to reach there? You know, why this was not happening before? Yeah, it is plausible that this is being reported more, the cases are being reported more and more, but why it took Nirbhaya case to happen to reach there, you know, that is also very much questionable.
Yeah.
Yes. Parveen Kumari also said that not only teachers but the parents need to influence their children the right way. and because children who see violence, domestic violence and sexual abuse of their mothers will get influenced negatively.
Right.
Professor Jasbir mentioned again that sex education in schools and families is very important to generate awareness, which is absolutely right, as well as
family is the first teacher, so they are the first responsible people in our lives. Like in India, we have a lot of husband-wife jokes going on. I mean, that's one of the most ridiculous things, or men-women jokes going on, so they try to generalize men's behavior or women's behavior or a husband's behavior or wife's behavior. That's something so ridiculous that one does not even feel like laughing at that. It's so ridiculous. That needs to stop first. I mean, imagine reading those jokes to a child. What will the child learn? That the woman, of two parents, my mother is the inferior creature of, sorry to use that word, but yeah, that's what they learn.
That's correct. And as well, says Margaret Lance mentions that she thinks that parents need to pull all these difficult conversations on the table in today's world, which is also true. And then just Linda Rosalia mentioned, I wonder which countries in the world have the lowest levels of sexual harassment and violence, and why. And Professor Jasby mentioned the Global Gender Gap Report because it has some insights. So I'll just leave it here in case someone wants to have a look at it. So this is
country?
Sorry.
Which countries have the lowest rate of sexual assault?
Which countries in the world have the lowest levels of sexual harassment and violence, and why? So in these global gender gap reports, there is some.
I would say definitely not conservative and patriarchal society. That is for sure. Definitely, I think this kind of judgment coming, what hurts more for those living in patriarchal society is when you are judged by a woman, not by a man. And this judgment happening between women, so between one another, happens because women are not aware in patriarchal societies of their power, of the power that they possess, and they are not aware of the fact that they have the same equal rights as men.
Right.
So I would say more developed capitalist societies where the pressing issues would be for more women being the CEOs of companies. Of course, that I think that they are aware of their power, and I do believe that, of course, that there is a certain level rate of sexual assaults toward them, but they are more aware of what they possess. How can they fight using the power that they have? So they don't feel as powerless, as oppressed as women do in patriarchal societies.
Yeah, I agree with Ella on that. Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, so thank you so much. I think that do any of you have anything to add?
Yeah, I actually, to conclude, I prepared this. Since I was not home to join the protest going on, I did this. I am with her. I am with all those women that were raped, abused, assaulted. I believe them. Everyone should come out. Everyone should share their stories, and with the hashtag most everything from Irene, which means do not kill childhood. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. That was really wonderful to share that,
Thank you so much. It was so also a wonderful conversation. Professor Jasby says that he is also with her, Empower Women All Over. Thank you so much for that. And I would like to thank everyone to join us today in this talk. We only have 3 WomenBeing talks left for now in this first series. And on the 20th of June, I will send everyone the link if people are interested to attend. We will have an online concert and spoken word and music event in support of Edinburgh Women's Aid. And I will let you all know about it in case you would like to attend. We are basically raising funds, finishing this series of talks by trying to raise funds to this organization that supports many women here in Edinburgh. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. We have another talk on this Friday, but it's at 10 a.m. UK time. I don't know if many of you will be able to do it, but it's the only time our speakers could do it, but we will record it and upload it on our YouTube channel. And the talk is about how can nature help us how connecting with nature can help us, like getting out of the lockdown. I hope you can join, and it was really wonderful to see you all here. Margaret, I will get in touch with you by email. And thank you so much. It's always wonderful, like that people engage in conversation, and I think that it's really, really amazing that we get like together with people from all over the world. And I want to thank you all for being there. There's people who have attended most of the talks, and very, very happy for that. Thank you so much, everyone.
I just want to say a few things. It's one of the liveliest and one of the most important talks which I have attended, and I'm really glad to have attended this or been a participant of this. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk, and I'm really happy, thankful to each one of you for listening to me, and I'm really glad that I met you guys. I'm really happy.
Thank you so much. It was really.
It was a pleasure. It was a pleasure, Pragya.
An absolute pleasure.
Same here. And you made the whole conversation really interactive. I had not prepared it that way, but I'm really glad that you pushed it in that direction. I had lots of pages prepared to talk, but that was a really wrong way. So I was talking this way for the first time. So I'm sorry if there's anything which was not clear to you all, but you can always write to me if you want to talk to me.
Thank you for the trust and for sharing everything that you did. I hope more and more people will come out and talk about everything. This would help.
We need to
help us all grow.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, then, and see you all soon. And Maria Jose, I hope you're okay. Good to see you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. If you share about other talks, I'll join.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.